The specular component is used to simulate shiny surfaces where you can expect to see bright highlights where light is reflected. I'll change the specular color to bright yellow. Now this is anything but realistic. I'm using these three primary hues to simulate the visual components just so that we can obviously see them in our preview image here. Now right now I'd have to say that I don't see any yellow. The teapot looks the same, and that's because we need to customize how much specularity we want by adjusting the level. This controls the intensity of the specular component. As I start to boost that up, you'll see the teapot brighten primarily in the middle of the diffuse area here. Now there's a graph over here that represents the intensity distribution of light. Imagine a light ray coming down this way and striking the surface right here. It's going to reflect off the surface and go back up. This is the surface itself. This graph represents the amount of scattering that occurs as the light rays hit the surface. Right now we have maximum scattering, and so we have a wide graph. This represents a rough surface where the specular component will be really spread out. The width of the graph is controlled by the glossiness parameter. As I increase glossiness, observe as the graph gets a little bit narrower and the specular highlight starts to tighten down. Now I'll boost the specular level up higher so that we can see a more dramatic bright spot. Notice that you can boost the specular level above 100%, and that means that the graph goes off the preview image. That's okay. So now we're simulating a glossy, smooth surface with a lot of specularity. This might be good for a polished metal teapot. If you wanted a more matte appearance to the surface, you might want to decrease the glossiness and decrease the specular level as well. Now this might be a more brushed or roughed up surface. The soften parameter is used to blur the specular component. And to really see this, you need to do a rendering. I'll go into active shade and we'll get a more accurate rendition of the visual components here. Now if I boost soften all the way up to its maximum value of 1, you'll see that the transition zone is softened out between the specular and diffuse components. I'll put it down to its minimum value of 0, and you'll see that it's a little bit larger now. It's not quite as smooth. The specular zone widened a little bit. So soften can be used really just to fine-tune the specular transition, and the default is 0.1.